This is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and welcome back to a special extra large news roundup. I have been on vacation for the past week, and while I have been on vacation, the auto industry has not stood still. There were a couple of interesting product launches last week, but I want to focus on the logo that you see here on the front page, which is Monterey Car Week in the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. Historically, this is a classic car show for the wealthy, super elite folks who love to collect million-dollar vehicles. But in recent years, we have seen more and more automakers use this as a venue to debut new vehicles, one-off vehicles, special editions, etc. So the focus of this news roundup is going to be what some of the luxury brands that we know and love brought to Monterey this past couple of weeks. We will start with Acura's vision for their future. Now, you'll recall that Acura was the first Japanese luxury brand that launched 40 years ago, and they are now celebrating their anniversary with a visionary concept called the Gyesera. This is designed to set a new design language for the brand, and it previews what they call the phantom lighting signature, which is inspired by Acura's logo. And you can see it up front there, the calipers that form the driving lights up front. And it's called phantom lighting because when the lights are off, it really fades into the paintwork, so you really don't see any lighting elements at all. And we'll see this phantom lighting, maybe with or without the disappearing act, showing on the Acura RDX, the next generation that launches next year. The one thing I would like to tell you about the Acura Gyesera, which is what powers it, and I can't because they didn't tell us. It could be internal combustion, it could be electric, it could be a mid-engine layout, it could be a front-engine rear-drive layout. Frankly, the proportions support either configuration, but I suppose since the focus here was on design, it doesn't really matter what's making it go. The Gyesera was designed in California by Acura's new creative director. On the outside, you see the matte titanium finish and the nearly all-glass canopy. The goal here was to, quote, define Acura performance through disciplined proportions, a sculpted form, and the seamless integration of advanced technology, creating an expression that is both progressive and authentic to the brand. It features butterfly doors, a deployable rear spoiler, and a first for Acura 22-inch center lock wheels. Fortunately, it was not just an external buck, but a full interior is available as well. It features a fixed seat with adjustable pedals and a steering yoke with kind of a wraparound driver display. You'll note there's no passenger display, there's no central touchscreen. It's all fairly minimalist and very driver-oriented. The trim here includes forged carbon with gloss black finishes and just barely visible pink accents. There are also some sustainable materials as we're starting to see more luxury brands get into sustainability. So recycled aluminum and Alcantara with post-consumer recycled polyester and sustainably developed leather. Again, this is a concept. Acura has not indicated any plans to bring the NSX back, although this could be a potential direction. The main goal here was to set a new design language and preview at least the lighting signature for the RDX. So from that, mission accomplished. We will switch over to Aston Martin, their new brute called the Veyron. This is a nearly one-off based on the Vanquish supercar. It has an 838 horsepower twin-turbo V12, making it the most powerful front-engine car in the world, hitting 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds. It was built by Aston Martin's new special vehicle operations, which comes under the Q division. There is updated transmission software and throttle mapping in addition to the tweaks to the engine. And up front is kind of a shark nose style design, which adds a sizable hood vent. It expands the Aston Martin grille to the full width of the vehicle and adds some very trendy and contemporary slimline style headlamps. The color here is a very cool satin red Andromeda. But if you're so inclined, a fully exposed carbon fiber look, which you can also get tinted, is available. Like the new Polestar 4 and Polestar 5, there is no rear window on the Veyron, but there is a rearview camera mirror mounted inside. The carbon fiber add-ons include side still extensions with sawtooth vortex generators and a giant rear diffuser, which you can see here, with quad exhausts. And you'll see that there's 2 exhausts at the bottom below the license plate and then 2 above, a little wider, just below the tail lamps. And Aston Martin notes that the exhaust here is 50% louder than the Vanquish. It also features aluminum suspension arms, magnesium wheels, a titanium exhaust and chassis bolts, and other upgrades to help make the Veyron up to 280 pounds lighter than the base Vanquish. While the exterior looks quite different from the Vanquish, the interior is largely carried over with some additional trim bits. There's satin red Andromeda accents. They have added some new technology in the form of drive modes. In this case, they've actually limited them. You start with Sport, and then you go to Sport Plus, and then you go to Track. So there's no normal mode, there's no luxury mode, there's no smooth mode. This is very much a high-performance brute. 3D printing is used around the center console and other areas, and a total of 150 will be built at about $2 million, launching in the spring of next year. So I suspect if you come back to Monterey next year, you'll see at least one of these driving around. Cadillac has had a presence at Pebble Beach for the past several years. The Celestiq here was quite a few years back. And this year they came to celebrate their work in Le Mans with the V1. This is a single-seat road-going variant of Cadillac's LMDH program, co-developed with chassis expert Dallara. This transmission, the suspension, and the electronics are taken from the V-Series.R and melded with an 830 horsepower hybrid V8. If you notice the paint there, that is a hand-sprayed paint gradient from silver to navy blue. The interior features an exposed carbon structure, a steering yoke, and a race-inspired interface. It's described as a clear statement of intent for the V-Series brand's future direction, although there have been some hints that Cadillac might want to build a handful of these, given that they have the Artisan Center in Warren, Michigan, where the Cadillac Celestiq is assembled. They do have some craftsmen capable of building one-offs or few-offs like this. So we might see a couple of these rolling out of the building there. But let's wait for an official announcement. McLaren chose to come to Pebble Beach with the MCL 6 GT. If you are a McLaren historical fan, you might recognize the inspiration for this vehicle. It is the M6 GT. That's the road car that was based on the M68 Can-Am race car that McLaren developed in the late 1960s. It features a carbon fiber structure, a mid-mounted V8, and most significantly, a 6-speed manual transmission. There's been a lot of buzz in the industry these days about the disappearance of the manual transmission. Some automakers have abandoned it entirely. Some have reluctantly abandoned it and would like to bring it back. Some of them have even talked about the notion of a manual transmission and the concept of an EV. But this, of course, here is very old school V8 and 6-speed. They plan to build 500 of these units in 2028. But McLaren does note that this is very much a retro-inspired vehicle. This is not the future of McLaren design. McLaren will continue to evolve the brand character that they have. They're working on their next generation Super Series, and so that will set the next stage for McLaren's more contemporary supercars, hypercars, and yes, eventually some kind of SUV. And you'll see a look at the interior here. Indicates how delightfully retro it is. I actually don't have a shot of the full interior, but if you're looking for a touchscreen, you won't find one here, but you will find a very intricately designed 6-speed manual transmission. You can see the name there stamped on the center console panel. So all in all, very cool, very slick, and I'm sure McLaren will make a tidy sum of money on the revenue from this product. Ferrari brought a makeover of the SF90 Stradale. Now that is the predecessor to the current 849 Testarossa. Ferrari makes a lot of money from their tailor-made program, and they're happy to do one-offs for customers for the right price, which is usually in the neighborhood of millions of dollars, as long as the taste police approve. Now, tailor-made is somewhat rare. Most automakers who have a bespoke program will let you do just about anything you want as long as it's legal and safe. But Ferrari adds a taste element in there. They will not let you paint your Testarossa Barbie pink, for example, because they are concerned about the resale value of the brand, and so are kind of putting limits on what customers are able to do. Now, other companies will take it even further, but there's a line that Ferrari will not cross. The CZ26 obviously is something that they were happy to do, and you can see there's, like the new Ferrari Luce, there's not a lot of Ferrari in this Ferrari from a visual standpoint. It's got a taller, blockier nose, flatter and more angular surfacing, super thin headlamps up front, and a full-width grille. The CZ26 was designed for a single American collector by Ferrari's design chief. So this is not a Johnny Ive love from design. This was done internally at Ferrari. The name indicates it is the 26th one-off that Ferrari has done. allegedly inspired by a 1970s Italian industrial design, which explains maybe the non-Ferrari-esque appearance that we see here. The design makeover does improve both cooling and aerodynamics. It has reworked front air curtains and a reworked rear spoiler. The interior and the powertrain are pretty much carried over, and that's basically 1,000 horsepower plug-in hybrid V8. So all the work was done basically on the exterior of the vehicle. And while we haven't seen the final vehicle yet, we are getting closer to the reveal of Jaguar's Type 01. That is the all-electric reboot of the brand that pushes the brand up market. You'll recall that a few years ago, they tossed about just about everything associated with Jaguar's heritage, except for the Leaper, and are coming back with something that is fairly controversial. We've seen the Type 00 concept, and now we have a look at the actual production interior, which has a little more detail than what we saw in the Type 00. You'll see that it is a very minimalist approach. It's not entirely different from the Range Rover GT that we saw a couple of weeks ago, although I would argue that maybe it's a little less generic. Jaguar notes that it is inspired by travertine stone and artisan textiles with brass-inspired finishes. So everyone's trying to find out, what do you go after? Titanium and aluminum and platinum? Maybe brass and copper are the way to go. It is a four-seater with a full-length center console with concealed storage, so everyone gets their own individual bucket. Like the Range Rover, there is no passenger side display, but there is an extra wide driver's display. Essentially acts as a central touchscreen as well. And you'll note the little console-mounted mini display for audio and climate controls, as well as the steering wheel-mounted haptic switches. What this means, sadly, is that there are very few actual real physical controls, knobs, and switches inside the Type 01. So while other automakers have realized that customers do want some tactility inside their vehicles, the Jaguar and the Land Rover folks haven't quite glommed onto that yet. Or they have, but it was too late to fix on this vehicle. So maybe a mid-cycle update will add some more tactility. It's also worth noting that like the Polestar 4 and the Polestar 5 and the Aston Martin Veyron, there is no rear window in the Type 01. It has a rear camera display, and you can barely see it in this image, but there's a small black rectangle mounted on the top of the dashboard at the base of the windshield. It's not mounted where you might find a regular rearview mirror. It's actually mounted where you used to find rearview mirrors on the old Chrysler products from the 50s. Again, we're about a month and a half away. Type 01 will be unveiled in early October in New York, and we're all waiting with bated breath to see what the final product looks like. Now, I mentioned that automakers like to bring some special editions to Pebble Beach, and this year's theme was to crank it up. Basically add more power, more leather, more suede, more aerodynamics. And we'll start here on the supercar side with the Lamborghini Revuelto SV, or Super Veloce. This is their flagship plug-in hybrid, now up to 1,051 total horsepower. That's an extra 50 horsepower. Basically, they doubled the battery size to 7.3 kilowatt hours, and they boosted the electric motor output about 190 kilowatts. So they really didn't have to do anything to the engine. All the extra power came from the electric side of the equation. The SV gets two-tone graphics with red accents, a new front splitter, and a fixed rear wing, all contributing to an 80% increase in downforce. There are new racing-inspired adjustable dampers with 14 discrete levels and next-generation carbon ceramic brakes. There's a new driving mode called Pilota, inspired by Lamborghini's GT3 presence. It remaps the ABS traction control and stability to ramp up the fun factor. There are carbon fiber door panels and racing seats inside, but otherwise, this is, again, a largely carried over interior. 1,963 will be made. That's 1963, which is Lamborghini's founding year, which is where they came up with the number. It's expected to start, according to a leaked data sheet, at about $740,000 here in the US when it launches next year. If your tastes run more off-road than on-road, then you might appreciate the Land Rover Defender Dakar. That's Dakar as in the Porsche 911 Dakar that came out a couple years ago. This is a road-legal version of Land Rover's Dakar Rally entry, and it's based on the recently launched Octa Performance flagship. The 626 horsepower V8 is carried over, but now it gets desert-ready suspension with bespoke coils and Bilstein advanced dampers and 35-inch all-terrain tires. Because it is desert-ready, it gets new drive modes, and those include Dune, Travel, and yes, one called Flight, which is exactly what you think it is. If you're going to fly off the road, this mode is designed to ensure smooth landings on extreme and varied terrain. There are roof-mounted light pods, carbon fiber air intakes, and a full underbody skid plate, larger wheel arches, and exposed rivets. All this comes to market next year with a price well north of $150,000, which is what will get you into an Octa these days. So we'll wait to see the final price. And finally, if you are looking to crank it up with something that is more family oriented, I'll present the Lucid Gravity GTS. Now, we already have seen the Lucid Air Sapphire, so this is an inspiration here. It's 1,070 horsepower, but it is still a 3-row luxury SUV. It hits 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. It's 20% more power than the Grand Touring, but not up to the 1,200 plus horsepower you get in a Sapphire. It adds standard dynamic handling package, rear wheel steering, and a 3-chamber air suspension. It will only be built for the US market, even though the Gravity is starting to be exported, and will start at just under $128,000. And finally, we'll spend a little time here with Karma. Karma is the reincarnation of Fisker. Fisker was Henrik Fisker's first automotive venture that went bankrupt and later was acquired by China's Guangzhou and then relaunched as Karma Automotive. And they basically took the Fisker Karma and brought it out as the Karma Revero. Now we are looking here at the Karma Gyesera. This is the latest update to the original Karma / Revero. And if I showed you the two side by side, you can see the clear lineage from one to the other. But basically, they've done a lot to improve the quality of the materials and help reduce the mass and tweak the powertrain and the interior as well. Among the design notes here, there's a comet line across the hood. That's that kind of scoop area. That includes a functional vent. They also talk about the target lighting. So in addition to the headlamps, you'll see there's a little light element in the front splitter and a center mounted light element in the hood as well. It is an aluminum space frame with carbon fiber reinforced body panels. It weighs just over 5,000 pounds, which yes is a little heavy. It's about the same or a little more than a Lucid Air Touring. The updated E-Rev powertrain now puts out 566 horsepower, features a 28.1 kilowatt battery, which provides an estimated 80 miles of range. So again, this is still an E-Rev like the old Chevy Volt, like the old BMW i3 Rex, like a lot of vehicles coming out of China these days. It should be noted that the Gyesera was originally expected to be an EV, so they've decided apparently to keep the E-Rev powertrain here. The updated interior features haptic controls and bridge of rear leather, but still looks quite a bit like the outgoing Revero and Karma, the original Karma. And this will go on sale in December at just under $140,000. The Gyesera was joined in Pebble Beach by the Amaris. The Amaris is basically a 2+2 coupe based on the Gyesera. This will launch at the end of 2027, so it does carry over some of the sheet metal as well as some of the interior bits with a more aggressive profile and some likely a little reduced mass. It'll use a more powerful version of the Gyesera's E-Rev powertrain as well, so look for even more performance coming out of this. And then finally, we got an update on the Kaveya, $400,000 price point, due in early 2028. This is a significant delay from the original target of late 2025. This is a 2-seater with butterfly doors and a 1,000 horsepower electric powertrain. And the big news here, people are skeptical, is that it's expected to use solid-state batteries, full solid-state from Factorial Energy. And this would be the first passenger vehicle to do so, unless perhaps the Chinese get there first. So we'll have to wait and see if they can pull this off. And that wraps up this week's supersized episode of the AutoPerspectives News Roundup. If you liked what you saw and heard, please subscribe and share. And check out autoperspectives.net for the blog, and look for me on both Substack and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening. See you next week.